Hey there, critical thinkers. So, I recently came across a popular parable or story that Dyer shared about two babies talking in a womb. This is taken from his book, The Sacred Self, and this has been used by many apologetics to prove philosophically that life after death exists and that there is a God. It is this cute little story where one unborn twin believes there is life after birth and even a mother taking care of them, and the other twin is totally skeptical and says, "Nah, this is all there is." On the surface, it sounds profound, a neat analogy suggesting, hey, maybe there is a higher power or afterlife that we can't see, just like a baby in the womb can't see the mother. But you know what? In this video, I am going to dissect why this womb parable is a false analogy by using logic and evidence. By the end, you will see that believing in a higher power or afterlife without evidence is a logical fallacy, no matter how touching the story is. Hello, I am Anand and you're watching Pale Blue Thoughts, the channel which dissects irrational beliefs using science and logic. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for over 400 rational and scientific videos. If you're one who hasn't heard this story yet, here it is.
Oh my God! Wow!
One of my favorite stories is in a mother's womb where two babies, and one turns to the other and said, "Do you believe in life after delivery?" And the other replies, "Why, of course, there has to be something after delivery. Maybe we're here to prepare ourselves for what will be later." "Nonsense," said the first. "There's no life after delivery. What kind of life would that be?" "I don't know," said the second, "but there'll be more light than here. Maybe we'll walk with our legs and eat with our mouths. Maybe we'll have other senses we can't understand now." First goes, "That's ridiculous. Walking is impossible, and eating with our mouths, that's absurd. The umbilical cord is what scientifically supplies nutrition and all that we need, but it's far too short. Life after delivery is to be logically excluded." And the second says, "What if it's just different than it is here? Maybe we don't need that physical cord anymore." The first goes, "Okay, if there were life after delivery, then tell me, why has no one ever come back from there? Delivery is the end of life, and in the after delivery is nothing but darkness and silence and oblivion. It takes us nowhere." And the second says, "But certainly we'll meet Mother, and she'll take care of us." The first goes, "Mother? You actually believe in Mother? If Mother exists, where is she now?" And the second goes, "She's all around us. We are of her. It is in her that we live. Without her, this world would not and could not exist." And the first says, "I don't see her. It's only logical that she's not here." To which the second replied, "Sometimes, when you're in silence and you really listen, you can perceive her presence. You can hear her loving voice calling down from above."
What a touching story, isn't it? Just so that we can understand the conversations better in the story, let us give the babies names. Twin A and Twin B. Yeah, they could stand for Twin Atheist and Twin Believer.
Good joke! But I don't like jokes.
Essentially, Twin B is making an analogy to faith in a higher power. The idea is that just like the skeptical baby can't see the mother or imagine life outside the womb, skeptics, or more specifically atheists in our world, can't see God or imagine an afterlife. But of course, the believers will be proven right one day when the delivery in the story or death in our life happens. We will all realize there was another world beyond, and there is a mother or God caring for us all along. It's a heartwarming story meant to encourage faith, suggesting that just because we can't detect something with our senses, it doesn't mean it isn't real. At first glance, it sounds pretty compelling, right? After all, in the parable, the believing baby turns out to be correct about the reality beyond the womb. So, by analogy, maybe those who believe in God or an afterlife without evidence will turn out correct too. But hold on, let us not get carried away. Analogies can be very misleading if we don't analyze them carefully. This one might be cute, but it is not logically sound. Let us break down why this parable fails and why believing a claim without evidence is problematic. At first, the story seems to make a clever point, but the more you think about it critically, the more you see it is comparing apples to oranges, or maybe babies to adults. Let us brush aside the obvious fact that babies inside wombs don't have the mental capability to analyze things or talk or imagine stuff. But let's grant that babies in wombs have such a cognition and consciousness. After all, this is a story, and what is a story without some good imagination? In the parable, the skeptical twin says, "I don't see mother, so she doesn't exist." However, if these babies could actually reason, they would have some evidence of an external reality and mother's existence. Far more evidence than we humans have for God or an afterlife. Think about it. A fetus can hear sounds from outside the womb, whether they are muffled voices, a heartbeat, or music. In fact, studies show unborn babies respond to their mother's voice. So there are auditory clues that an outside world exists and people like its mother are out there. But that doesn't give anyone the license to claim that Abhimanyu could learn about getting out of the Padma Vyuha whilst still in his mother's womb. They can hear stuff because they have ears, but their brains aren't developed to understand what is going on. A fetus can also experience changes in light. It is darker inside when it is night and a bit lighter when the sun is out. That is a hint of an external environment beyond the uterine wall. The baby can even feel motion. When the mother moves or walks, the fetus feels gentle rocking or changes in orientation, all thanks to gravity. That could be a clue. My world is moving within some larger space. In other words, if a fetus had adult level reasoning, it wouldn't be completely clueless. There are indicators of a world beyond in its immediate experience. It might not understand them fully, but some evidence is there in the form of sound, light, and movement. In the parable, the believing baby even mentions, "Sometimes when you're in silence, you can hear your mother." So, even the story hints at evidence. Now compare that to us. Do we have any sensory input or measurable evidence of a world beyond this life? Do we hear muffled voices from heaven or see light peeking in from beyond? Or do we detect any force that clearly comes from a God? No, we don't. Unlike the womb scenario, our universe appears self-contained. All our scientific instruments and observations have yet to find any clear trace of angels, heavens, or a caring cosmic parent among us. So, the analogy is tagged in favor of the believer in a way reality is not. The unborn babies actually have evidence, even if it is limited, of an outside world, whereas believers in the supernatural are working with zero direct evidence of their claims. This difference is huge. It's a lot easier to be right about something when there are dozens of data points supporting it versus when there are none. Next, the womb story is told from an omniscient perspective. We know for a fact that the believing baby is right. There really is a mother and a life after birth. That gives the tale its punch. But we are the audience. We are outside of the story. Now imagine being in the baby's position. They don't know what is true yet. The skeptical twin is being cautious when it says nobody has come back from delivery, so probably nothing is there, whilst the other twin is basically making a guess. Yes, twin B's guess happens to be correct in this story, but it could just as easily have been wrong. Believing something without evidence doesn't make you wise or correct. It makes you lucky at best, like an astrologer making a prediction. A broken clock shows the correct time twice a day, but that doesn't mean it is a reliable timepiece. The believer baby might have guessed right by accident or by a hopeful hunch, but that isn't a reliable method to get to truth. To illustrate this, let us tweak the parable. Suppose there were not 2 but 5 babies in the womb, each with their own wild theory about life after delivery. Baby 1 says, "Nope, nothing after birth. This womb is all we have got. Baby 2, the religious one. After birth, we'll meet mother who will love us. Trust me, she's real and will take care of us. This is basically Dyer's version. Now let baby 3 be a simulation theorist. Actually guys, we're not babies at all. We're just brains in a vat or codes in a big computer simulation. This womb is all an illusion. Now let baby 4 be a sci-fi fan. We are in the Matrix. After birth, we'll wake up in pods as adults and evil robots are using us for energy. Finally, baby 5, which is a mythical baby. I have a feeling that after we get out, we'll be greeted by a giant flying space hippopotamus who created us. Now, from inside of the womb, none of these babies can actually know the truth. All these claims are equally unsupported by the evidence available. Baby believers' idea about the mother and life after birth sounds nice, but so do some of the others in a weird way. They're all wild guesses or imaginative stories. It is only after the fact, once birth happens, that is, after the evidence arrives, that you could say which baby was right and which was wrong. Without evidence, believing any one of them beforehand is just a stab in the dark. The parable, however, tricks us because we know that the mother exists. It frames the skeptical baby as being close-minded and the faithful baby as wise. But in reality, both babies would have been unjustified in their certainty. Twin atheist was too certain there is nothing outside, and twin believer was overly certain there is something very specific out there. The rational position for an intelligent fetus would actually be, I don't know. We don't have enough information. I guess we'll find out when the time comes. In other words, healthy skepticism, not outright denial, but not unfounded belief either. Another issue is that the parable sets up a bit of a straw man argument. You can pause to read what a straw man argument is here if you don't know what it is. It portrays the skeptic as someone who flat out refuses to believe anything beyond immediate experience. The skeptical twin even says it is only logical if I can see her now, implying that skeptics won't believe in anything unseen. Real life skeptics, like most atheists, don't actually claim if I can't see it, it absolutely doesn't exist. Rather, we usually say, I don't see evidence for that claim now, so I have no reason to accept it as true as of now. In other words, we're not claiming omniscience, we're expressing doubt due to lack of evidence. The difference may sound subtle, but it is important. The skeptical approach is basically show me the evidence and I'll consider it. Until then, I reserve belief. The baby in the parable, however, is made to sound as if he knows there is nothing beyond the womb. That is actually as arrogant as claiming to know for sure that God does exist. Atheists don't generally claim to know there is no God or afterlife. They just don't believe in one due to absence of evidence, or like in my case, find it improbable. As the philosopher Bertrand Russell famously explained, if someone claims there is a China teapot orbiting the sun that is too small to detect, you can't disprove it, but it is perfectly reasonable to doubt it and not take it on faith. You wouldn't be close-minded to question an undetectable teapot, you'd be sensible. The same goes for an undetectable deity or afterlife. In the womb analogy, the believer twin is basically saying, you can't see mother now, but that is no reason to doubt. I just feel she's there, and you'll see once you're born. This is directly parallel to someone saying, you can't see God now, but trust me, he's real, and you will find out after you die. However, as Russell's teapot analogy highlights, shifting the burden of proof like that is not valid reasoning. Onus is on the person claiming something exists to prove evidence, not on others to disprove an unfounded claim. Just as the skeptic baby isn't obligated to disprove mother, we're not obligated to disprove God or heaven. Rather, the believer needs to show proof that such things do exist. And so far, they haven't. One powerful rebuttal to just believe you will see later arguments comes from none other than Carl Sagan, whose famous pale blue dot inspired this channel's name. He gave an analogy of his own. Imagine I claim I have an invisible dragon in my garage. You come to investigate, all excited, but I say, oh, you can't see it, it's invisible. I suggest spreading flour on the floor to catch its footprints. You reply, this dragon floats in the air. I propose using an infrared camera to detect its heat. You say, it's a heatless, fire-breathing dragon. Every test I think of, you have a special excuse for why it won't detect the dragon. In the end, what is the difference between your undetectable dragon and no dragon at all? The mother or God in the parable is like Sagan's dragon. If you define a being or a realm like life after death, something which by definition can't be detected or tested in any way until we die, then you haven't given us a meaningful claim. You have given us an unfalsifiable idea. And an unfalsifiable idea is not evidence-based. It is just a fancy guess. It could be comforting, yes, but that doesn't make it true. One might counter, well, the babies did eventually get evidence. They were born and they saw mother. So maybe we'll die and get our evidence then. The trouble is, by the time we are dead and we find out then that there is indeed something out there, it is too late to inform our beliefs back here, right now. We have no feedback loop. No one has reliably come back from death to report what is out there. Unlike the babies who will all be born in 9 months, at which point their debate is settled, we, the living, don't have a scheduled time when it is all revealed. We just could very well all just die and never find out anything because we just cease to exist. So betting your whole life's worldview on an evidence-free claim that can't be checked until after death is not wisdom, it's a gamble. Now let us go back to a womb. Imagine our 5 hypothesized babies again. They each have a different idea of after delivery. Obviously, at most, one of these ideas can be true, but there is a chance that all of them can be false. This mirrors our world. There are countless religions and spiritual beliefs about the afterlife or higher powers. Some folks believe in heaven and hell, some in reincarnation, some in merging with some cosmic consciousness, others in very specific deities or even mystical space aliens. But they all contradict each other. They can't all be true at the same time, but they can all be wrong at the same time. The womb analogy conveniently only presents one believer with one theory that the mother will care for us and one skeptic. Realistically though, if we apply the same logic, we will have to entertain all kinds of claims. Maybe after this life, we get abducted by a chipmunk, or maybe we are in an endless cycle of rebirth, or maybe we are in a simulation and we'll wake up in another reality. Without evidence, how do we pick which story to believe? The parable cunningly assures us that the nice story with the comforting end with a loving mother is the true one. Remember the ending of the book and movie The Life of Pi? It is the same situation in this story too. We have to select the best story based on our beliefs and faith. In reality, simply having faith in a specific narrative doesn't increase its probability of being true. Twin B could have been dead wrong if you just think hypothetically. What if after birth there was no mother and the babies were on a scientific lab table or something? The lesson shouldn't be just believe the most comforting story. In reality, it should be don't assume you know the answers when you truly don't. Stay curious and look for evidence. There is even a famous principle called Hitchens' razor, which is named after the famous atheist writer and debater Christopher Hitchens, which states, what can be asserted without evidence can also be dismissed without evidence. In plain terms, if someone just makes a claim out of thin air, like there is a teapot in orbit, or there is a dragon in my garage, or there is a god up in the sky, we are very well entitled to say, well, I just don't buy it unless you show some proof. We don't have to disprove it. They have to prove it. If they don't, we can reject the claim and move on. No harm done. Another way to put this is the powerful statement by Carl Sagan again. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. The claim that some all-powerful, intelligent being created this universe and watches over us, or that our consciousness will survive bodily death and travel to another world, those are extraordinary claims. They're not impossible, but they would massively change our understanding of reality. Such claims demand really solid evidence before we believe them. Yet, as of today, we have no robust evidence for those claims. We have personal anecdotes, holy books, philosophical arguments, but nothing empirical and conclusive that stands up to scientific scrutiny. In the case of the womb story, the evidence for the babies is essentially zero. So, the intellectually honest stance would be atheism. Treat the mother hypothesis as false until demonstrated otherwise. In the story, the believer baby says, sometimes in silence, you can hear mother's voice. In real life, many religions ask us to interpret our inner feelings or coincidences as God's voice. We humans have rich imaginations. Wayne Dyer's tale of the twins in the womb is a beautiful piece of storytelling, and it certainly gets you thinking. But beautiful stories aren't the same as true stories. This particular analogy, as we have seen, is fundamentally flawed. It tricks us into dropping our guard by playing on our emotions. So the next time someone shares this womb analogy on social media to encourage blind faith, you will be prepared to smile and say, nice story, but it doesn't prove what you think it does. Thanks for listening. You will see me in the next one.